Hey, Tim, this is Danny Smith. Just calling to tell you how much I appreciate listening to your shows, Truckers' Voices. It's very informative. I really like hearing the driver stories, how they got into the trucking industry, and maybe what kind of trucks they started out with. And it's just been a lot of fun, and I would encourage any drivers out there to tune in and listen, call in, be a part of it. It's a great show.
Hey, this is Chuck Lopesiger, and I listen to Truckers' Voices every Thursday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook or YouTube with host Tim Taylor and co-host Steve Brand because it keeps me informed about the industry and the drivers that keep our country moving forward. Don't forget, Thursday, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Be there.
Hi, this is Scott Post, and I love Truckers' Voices because there's always something entertaining and educational for our industry. And it's also hosted by two of my good friends, Tim Taylor and Steve Brad. Tune in tonight, and in the meantime, be safe out there.
Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? My name's Charlie Demchuk, and I'm here to welcome you to tonight's big show. Y'all sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Tim and Steve got a good one in store for you. So have a good night. We'll see you.
Hi, this is Tony Wainwright. I hope you enjoy listening to Truckers' Voices as much as I do. Now, without any further ado, kick back, kick your shoes off, air your corns out, and get ready to listen to another fine show.
Well, good Thursday afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's doing good. I hope you had a good day of trucking out today, and I hope everything that you did was blessed and prosperous, and I hope that you did everything to keep America moving forward, right? So everything you do every day makes a difference. Truck driver, you are the backbone of this economy, and you are the one that keeps the wheels rolling out there, and you keep the grocery store shelves filled. You keep everything that we have on a daily basis. And I thank you for that. Everything that we have is all brought by truck. There is no ships that go through the Walmart parking lot. There's no airplanes that land in the Walmart parking lot. It all is hauled by truck. So I'm glad that you're doing what you do because you make my life better and everybody else's life better out there. And I thank you for it. Hey, today is Thursday, and it seems like it's been just yesterday since we had our last show. We had a good show last week with Bob and Deb Murphy. But tonight we got an even better show tonight with Kevin Birch. And we're going to hear Kevin's story about how he got into trucking, everything that the trucking industry has done for him over the years. And I think we're going to gain some good insight from Kevin tonight. So y'all sit back and y'all hold on because we got a good show. And y'all know how it is with that hour. That hour goes by really, really fast there. So y'all get your listening ears on. And hey, we'll open up the phone lines close to the bottom half hour of the show. And if you got any questions, we'll let you call in and talk to Kevin or talk to Steve or talk to me. It don't matter. Y'all just need to call in there. But without further ado, I got to bring my co-host in here. I always got to bring him in here on his theme music there. So let's bring Steve in here.
Me rolling, they hating, patrolling and trying to catch me riding dirty.
Rolling, baby, I'm rolling. I was rolling good today till I popped that tire, and then I, not rolling so good. So we made it into a safe haven, and a couple guys come out and took that tire off and hauled it back away and put me a good one on, and we went to trucking again, and everything was good. And I tell you what, with that being said, I don't know what the weather's going to be like down south, but up here it's going to be mid 90s. They're saying heat index over 100. So guys, check those tires. Check those tires. I'm telling you, there's going to be some popping going on next week.
Absolutely.
And,
This time of
so
year, Steve, you start seeing the gators out on the road and all. And, I'm glad you said that because we do need to make everybody aware to, not ride beside those trucks, especially on that right side. You don't want to hang out on that right side.
nope, nope, do not want to hang out on that right side. That's the biggest blind spot on a truck. But
Right.
and as far as you truck drivers go, you do pop a tire, hit them 4 ways. Watch what you're doing. Make sure there ain't nothing sitting on the shoulder that you might hit. If there is an exit ramp there, get off the exit ramp. If check it out if possible, and you can get it to the next exit. Man, make it safe on those tire changing guys. Get off the road as much as possible. See if he's got an orange flag. If you're stuck on the side of the road, see if he's got an orange flag. Don't get out in the road, but flag that traffic over, man. Everybody needs to be safe, and
Right.
do the best you can with what you got to work with. I know you can't always get it into a safe place because it may wrap up around the axle or something like that. But man, do the best you can to be safe, But it's all
Well,
good.
well, Steve, other than you having a blowout today, I guess you had a good day of trucking. Otherwise, you made it home. The most important trip is a trip through the door, right?
Exactly. That's what I always say. The most important trip's that trip home, and I made it. Walked in the door, set my bag down, changed into my Trucker's Voices T-shirt there, and got me a glass of tea. And I'm on with my good buddy Tim. We got a good guest coming in here. So, man, Kevin's an awesome guy, and he's got a heck of a story. I'm ready to hear it.
I'm going to tell you what. Now, Truckers Voices, we have had some good guests here lately, and I know there's weeks that we kind of, we don't do it, but then there's weeks that we do it, back to back and all that. But we've had some good guests on here, and I don't think tonight's going to be any exception there. I think,
Nope.
we do this, and we were talking behind the scenes before we got the show started tonight. We actually do this was a grassroots effort to just hear the truck driver's story or anybody in the trucking industry. We want to hear their stories about how they got into trucking and, where it's led them to. And, I think Kevin's got a good story to bring us tonight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm just gonna put a little tease out there.
Yeah.
Talked to a couple people this week. Ain't gonna say nothing, nobody, but in the future we got some more good shows coming.
Yep.
So
I've got some seeds planted also, Steve.
Yep. So y'all stay tuned. We're gonna have fun.
All right, and thank y'all for tuning in. If you tell everybody on the replay that we're actually directing everything from Facebook over to YouTube, you just have to click the YouTube link now to join us live. It's just much easier that way. We don't have as many technical problems this way, and YouTube likes to change. Facebook likes to change up some stuff, and it kind of throws us for a loop sometimes. So anyway. It ain't no problem. Just click the link and you're here with us. So, hey, Steve, let's don't belabor this no more. Let's bring our guest in here tonight and let's get started with the show. But we're going to bring him in on the music that we always bring everybody in on, right?
Sounds good, buddy.
All right. Mr. Kevin Birch.
Exactly.
Oh. Kevin, thank you for coming on the show tonight, man. We bring everybody on the Rocky theme because everybody in our minds are champs in their right.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's an honor to be here tonight and talking to you all. And I appreciate the drivers. I like that little intro. I thought maybe Steve was going to stand up and do a little dance routine, but he was just kind of rolling like that. But
I just rolling, baby. I just rolling with it.
But it's a good thing this is a 4-hour show, right? Isn't that what you told me, 4 hours?
Absolutely, 4 hours. but I think that Steve and I will have to tag team it. One of us might have to go in the sleeper berth because we got to get our 10 hours off there. We got to have our hours reset.
Oh, there's those hours things, right?
Yes,
right.
sir.
But Steve, I tell you, thank you for the call the other day and talking with you, Tim. And I know, Steve, you've won some awards over the years. I've been involved. We're going to bounce around here a little bit. And I'm going to go back when I was 10 years old. But before I do, I appreciate what you all do and the storytelling. And we'll get to that later on, but about the image and why that's important and telling the story. I think more people are telling the stories about what they do. And there for a while, we're going to touch base with it, guys. the Knights of the Road. I always like talking about the Knights of the Road. There's a lot of people that don't know that. I mean, you two do, right? Knights of the Road.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, that's when I was growing up, 10 years old or so, that's what the drivers were doing at the time. But anyways, and Tim, I was at the show down there the other day, the truck show, and seeing you get that award, the TA Petro Truck Stop Award, and in this industry, you get to know a lot of people, and you guys are both road team captains, and it's just like the Marines, you're always a road team captain.
Right.
And there's over 500. But yeah, I know. I was just kidding. I wish we did have 4 hours telling our stories, but in the interest of time, you wanted me to talk a little bit about the beginnings, if you will. So at the age of 10, my dad was in the trucking business. He didn't drive truck, but he ended up working 44 consecutive years in trucking. And at the time when I was, I had maybe 10 or 15 years under my belt, I thought I'd never get to be 44 years in this industry. But guys, this year will be 51 years that I've pulled a paycheck with respect to hauling freight or dispatch and that type of thing. Freight, not a whole lot, but interesting enough, at 10 years of age, my dad was terminal manager, later on was regional manager of an LTL union carrier up in Flint, Michigan. I was born and raised in Swartz Creek, right outside of Flint. Back when I was chairman of ATA and TCA, I kind of took it easy on bringing up Flint, because back in the day, in the 60s and 70s, that was a pretty good city. And I'm not beating my old hometown up, but they've had a lot of issues over the years. But at 10 years, my dad would take me down to the terminal and Saturday and Sunday, and I'd either be sweeping the dock and he'd give me a few dollars, or I'd be out in the pit out there in the trailers. My mom didn't particularly care for that, but I'd pick up seals, broken seals and wood and whatnot. My dad would give me, back then I didn't have to pay. I didn't get 1099. I actually got cash, guys, but I really enjoyed it. And I guess I love telling this story, is that my dad, when I was 10 and 11 years old, he would assign me the task of filling up the soda pop machine and the candy machine. And the story I like to do on that is that I filled them up. I took the inventory, I gave him the inventory, and then I counted the money, rolled the quarters and the dimes and the nickels. And guess what? When I was 14, 15 years old, we had a new school that was being built, middle school. And guess who sold candy during the lunch hours? It was yours truly, and I hired two other kids. And they would report in their sales, and payday was the big deal back then. But trucking indirectly got me into selling candy, because I was at the terminal and got to know the drivers. The drivers got to know me. That's the boss's kid. So then I'd go out in the shop and I'd probably see some pictures out there that my dad probably knew that I'd see. My mom sure didn't. But anyways, I grew up in that environment. And lo and behold, got through school and started taking some college courses. And my dad said, why don't you work a night shift there while you're going to school, pick up some extra money. So that's what I did. I started working there. I spent a year at Western Michigan and came back and worked and went to school in Flint. And all of a sudden, this thing, I got to know drivers, I got to know the other dispatchers, and I also got to know a lot of people that my dad knew in the industry. It was a people business. And as you all well know, whether you're driving behind the wheel, behind the windshield there, you run into people, whether in the truck stops or the shippers or the receivers. So I got my start from my dad. At the age of 21, I was moved down to Detroit. I've only worked for 3 companies in 51 years. And wow. It's amazing. And so I went to Detroit in 1988. I ended up getting an opportunity after a person that had a company called Jet Express was recruiting me. He needed to have a vice president / president. Because he had a few kids and he wanted to keep it in the family. But lo and behold, later on, I had the opportunity to buy into that company. And several years later, Matter of fact, in 2017, we sold out. My partners all left or retired, and I've stayed on. I work for a great company called Martin Transportation out of Michigan. And speaking of Michigan, I want you to know I'm a Wolverine in Buckeye land down here. All right. But I've spent just a few. My office crew there said that, Kevin, you've spent more time in Ohio, so you better learn how to say Buckeye. I said, I don't think so. I'm a Wolverine, true and blue. And the last 3 years, they call it the three-peat. This fourth year coming up, we're going to call it a four-peat when Michigan beats Ohio State. But it all revolved around trucking. And I tell you, I've said this before about telling the story. I hope people tell their story because it look at in my situation. It's no different than many of us that are in the trucking industry. I just happen to be one that's been sitting around behind a desk and learning the ropes and knowing how to move freight. But don't tell the story just once in a while. Tell it every day. Don't just say once in a while, yeah, it's good to be in the trucking industry. No, every day there's a story that all of us have to tell. And speaking of that, I'll start out with one because I think it's important that you have data, if you will, to support what you talk about. Right. We have 9 million people. You fellows know because you're on the road team, but 9 million people in this industry. And I've had people raise their hand. They say, well, Kevin, that's impossible. There's not that many drivers. Well, I didn't say drivers. I said in this industry, we represent 5% of the gross national product. Those are the stories that we need to tell. So in saying that, we got 3 million plus drivers, professional men and women, but we've got OEMs, trailer manufacturers, truck manufacturers, shop people. You know, the shop people. I get going here on my tangent, but there's a need for that. There's a need for shop foremans, technicians, mechanics. Call them what you want, but it's the ones that are going in there, and now it's high tech. But you know, we already know that we need a driver shortage, even though some organizations don't believe that. The number I used when I was chairman of ATA, and I heard Chris Spear, the president, say it the other day, we need roughly 1 million drivers in the next 10 years. That has not changed. What's changed maybe is right now those of us that have been around, we're going through a bump right now. Mm-hmm. And we'll come back, but we're going to lose some drivers. But I'll start I'm not going to talk politics, but we are the most deregulated industry, not in the United States, but on the planet.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So anytime you guys want to say, Kevin, be quiet, we got to take a commercial break or something, go ahead. But
no.
Think about it. They tell you when you're going to take a random drug test. They tell you how many hours you're going to work. They're going to tell us how many pounds we can put on a trailer, and they're going to tell you what hours and when you've got to take a mandatory break. I mean, it's not the easiest, and it's not for everybody. It really, truly isn't.
Right.
But I will say that we're making some strides after telling our story, because ATRI, American Trucking Research, I think you guys know Rebecca. She's spot on.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, the younger drivers, we've got to have something there to show them, why do you want to be in the trucking business? And I'm here to tell you, I'm bouncing around here a lot, but I will say one thing. Younger drivers are saying the top reason they want to be truck drivers is because of the money. Now, 5 or 10 years ago, are you kidding me? Our drivers were been underpaid for a long time, and this was a long time coming. But who would have thought, and especially if you guys, I hope you agree, who would have thought that the younger drivers coming in, when you gave them a survey to fill out, they'd say, yeah, I'm going in trucking for the money.
Right. Right.
I mean, most of the time in the past, it was for the fact that you had the passion to be a truck driver.
Right.
But so I bounced around, you know, as far as learning. I tried to be the best of whatever I was assigned to. My dad, matter of fact, he said, you know what you ought to do? Now, I was in 11th grade, and I was the only boy that took typing. And that was way before we had cell phones and all this other stuff. We had pagers. Right. But, you know, dads are pretty neat. And happy Father's Day to everybody coming up. But
absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a lot of drivers out there that hopefully will get home to appreciate the fact that the family appreciates them. But it's who takes 2 years of typing in high school?
I took one.
Yeah. I took one, but I still can't type.
I can't either.
Do you guys hand pick it, or are you able to type?
Oh no, I'm not able to type. I kind of hand pick it around there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Well,
pretty decent, but I'm not great. Now, my wife is like, I don't know how she does it. Her fingers move. I don't know how she processes it, but she does it all the time, every day,
Right.
well, my dad had the vision because he thought that if I was going to be in the trucking business, I'd need to know how to type because they need billers. So I was a billing clerk for a while as well, learned how to do that. And then that was way before, like I said, laptop and cell phones. So I'm glad he did that. When I went first year of college there at the Western, I took a first semester there. I took typing there too. So I don't want to say really fast, but let me say this. When the BlackBerry, and some people are going to say, Kevin, what's a BlackBerry? I think I was one of the better ones, let me just say, in the greater Dayton area on a BlackBerry. And I do miss my BlackBerry, but that's another story. But I learned how to react to people and get things done. I think one of the most underrated jobs is not only for the professional men and women, what you all do every day, move America's goods and freight and on time and safely, is a terminal manager. The terminal manager is really, you talk about hours of service. He works around the clock. I did it for a while. I was in Detroit. You have interesting things happen. If it's not an accident or fender bender, it might be a robbery. It might be somebody stealing freight. We had trailers stolen in Detroit. I worked 15 years in Detroit. And I had two cars stolen. So I learned personal cars. So I learned what it takes to be a terminal manager. You're the one that's going to order up the snow plows. You're the one that's going to make sure that the driver's room is clean and that the machines are not only the trucks are working okay, but also the office. And that goes back to the 9 million people. There's a lot of people that work in the office as well that help out, and OS&D, overshort and damage, claim people and whatnot. So it's a hell of a story. And that's why I'm saying, you talk about a career, look, 51 years, but there's a lot of us out there that've got 30, 40, 50 years in the business. And I hope, my day's coming. I don't know exactly when, but to think about the opportunity to come down and be president of a trucking company and be involved in rate work. And then I ended up being involved, guys, in the associations. And I'll tell everybody on the show tonight that if you're not, when you're telling your story, if you're not involved in some sort of organization, then you need to do yourself the justice of being in either a city council, go to a meeting in your city, go to your state level, be a road team captain, state association captain. Just do one of those associational things because you'll learn something every day.
Yes.
Right.
Definitely agree. So, Kevin, let me ask you a question. And I'm gonna go back a couple of years here, and I just want to hear your perspective when we went through the era of COVID, and from your perspective on how it affected the trucking industry.
Well, you guys know me. I'm a very positive person. I'll take a negative and turn it into a positive. And believe it or not, I'll have people when I'm out talking about our industry, they'll say, well, is he trying to say that was a positive thing with COVID? I'm going to say some of the things that came out of COVID were positive. And one of them was a realization that we do deliver America's goods. We are needed. We're underrated. We're underpaid. And it made the awareness, if you will. And that's why Trucking Moves America Forward, which recently was that was put to sleep, if you will, a new group, if you will. A new topic is no longer TMAF without trucking, because that's the word. Nothing without trucking is the new slogan. Right. But in saying that, to answer your question, Tim, people took us just took advantage of us.
Right.
Yes. They weren't aware of it, and so instead of people saying, "Well, we'll wait in line out there while we're waiting for you got hours of service issues and whatnot, and you'll wait in line, and maybe you can't get back home because you're out of hours." Well, guess what? There was a need there where there wasn't one or two people unloading their trucks. There was 3 or 4. They wanted to get the goods. They wanted to get you out of there so that you could come back in. But
Right.
it was time when we were able to tell our story, because while everybody was being told to stay home, during that time, guys, I had significant others and wives that would call me and say, you know what, you're making my husband work when everybody else, you're putting him in danger. Well, we were able to tell our story because, we're in that 6-foot area and being a professional. And to answer your question, we were able to do the media, do press. There was just, whether it was in newspapers or on TV, uh, and the drivers, instead of the ones that had their head down a little bit prior to COVID, their head was up because they were shaking hands and being told how important that they were.
Right, right. And I'll never forget running and running loads. So I was actually running out of South Georgia over to Montgomery, Alabama on a relay over there. And one day I went over there and I seen people standing on the side of the road with signs saying how much they appreciated the truck driver, even handing out sandwich bags and stuff like that. And on my way back, I stopped and I talked to some of them and I said, "Hey, what's going on here and why are you doing this?" And and they said, "Yeah, we're doing this because we appreciate you guys and we know that you guys aren't getting the respect that you need at some of the shippers and receivers, and they're not even letting you guys use your restrooms and stuff like that." And I said, "Well, I really do appreciate you showing us the support and letting us know that you have our back." So yeah, it was a good feeling at that time. And I think we shifted on the pendulum back to not being as people not looking at us like they did during that time and realizing how important how essential, I guess the word is, how essential the truck driver was or is.
Well, that's a great point, and let's just take that needle and move it a little bit more. It's pretty exasperating to know that now the shelves are full and everybody's, I don't want to say fat and sassy, but you're right. But isn't it sad that we have to have a law that mandates that we've got a restroom for our professional men and women to have a facility there to be able to go in? I mean, just think about it, 3-4 years ago, how that would be no problem whatsoever. And now we're going back into some bad stuff again.
Right.
And I hate to see it. Or maybe even you're not allowed to park in certain areas. And I'm going to talk about truck parking here in a minute. But in saying that, we've got to stay there and keep telling our story and let people know how important we are. And also, how would some of the motoring public realize that there's some places where you stop and get gas that you're not allowed to go in the bathroom?
Right.
It's not right.
No.
So we just got to continue to have a good attitude about it and say, hey, we're moving America's goods. But you guys know, because you're road team people and drivers that tell the story, you got to do it young, start them young, teach them about the blind spots. I mean, I'm bouncing around here, but there's a lot to trucking. And that's why I said earlier, not everybody can be a professional truck driver or be an executive or a dispatch or whatever else, because it's a lot. I don't want to say it's as tough maybe as an air traffic controller for a dispatcher, but I tell you what, it's probably equal to, it can be, when a driver's got a deadline or whatnot and they're calling in the dispatch. I mean, there's pressure all the way around there.
There is. And let me say this, and I know Steve wants to jump in there. Whenever I go to the elementary schools, whether it be with, the ATA as far as a road team captain there, or FedEx as far as one of FedEx road team captains, I love going to the career days, and I love letting the little kids know that, everything that, they have on. And I make a point, I say, hey, even your shoes that you have on, it all got hauled by a truck. And I try to make the point and drive the point home, absolutely how essential the trucks are to everybody and the truck drivers are to everybody. And I think that's one point that we need to keep telling our story about, is how important, how essential that we are. Because I think, everybody just takes it for granted. And they take for granted that there's going to be toilet paper on the shelves. And we see how that went, But anyway, I'll digress, and I'll let Steve jump in there. Go ahead, Steve.
To agree with that, I agree with all that. I was hearing a lot during COVID that, when we couldn't get the goods on our trailers because the manufacturing was down, and people started getting down on the drivers. And I tell people, no, it's we're just like spokes in a wheel. To keep it all going, everybody's got to work together. So these manufacturers, they cannot manufacture enough product so we can get it on our trailers and get it there. And I just kind of watched how it progressed, and as it went along, more people got back to work, more people got to help it. But the restroom thing, the parking thing, that not being able to get something to eat, I mean that sparked the eating in your truck, cooking in your truck. Now fortunately I got a day cab. I mean I carried my lunch and stuff with me, but I remember back years ago when I was running coast to coast, I never thought about really cooking in my truck. I mean, I had a little grill there, and I get laid over on the weekend. I might get something to cook on it and everything. But yeah, just to kind of move a little bit forward, Kevin, what sparked you to get out there in your chairman's positions, get involved in these groups and stuff like that? I mean, I know you said that you're always been interested in this and learn all you can and get your story out, get our story out in the industry. But what sparked you to further on and get in those chairman's positions and stuff like that?
Well, I tell you, it goes back, and I don't want to bring a tear, but I mean, it's Father's Day coming up. It was all my father, and my mom supported my dad. She was a stay-at-home mom. And my dad, I tell you what, he taught me the political wise, how important the politicians are. At a young age, I was involved with my dad taking me to various state representatives and whatnot. And who would have thought, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15 years old. When I was 19, I saw my dad would, back then would deliver Christmas gifts or Thanksgiving gifts to customers and whatnot when that was allowed. And we went to people's houses and we sat down and we talked. I mean, that's all part. See, that's the part I'm saying. That's part that I was brought up with, and understanding how valuable a customer is. Never take them for advantage of them, if you will, or take them for granted. Drivers, I've been involved in union and non-union and truckload and LTL. So it gave me a taste of that. And so I got involved in truckload carriers and ATA back in 1990 for the most part. And I liked it so much that I volunteered for as many things that I could and still be president of a trucking company. I mean, it's hard work no matter what you do in this industry. And but it's paid off. And who would have thought being truckload carrier chairman of the board back in 2010. And I'll tell you this, it was kind of interesting. I think you guys know that you've heard of the story about Undercover Boss. That started, believe it or not, right around 2010. Well, I told our safety director, which was Jeff Davis at the time, I said, Jeff, I have already, I've been in the business for a few years. I said, I've shook hands so many times to people that for safety awards and service awards. And I've been a dispatcher, supervisor, sales manager, and now president of the company, but I don't have a CDL. And so that's why I didn't want to be rubber stamped. And so I went to Clark State here, Springfield, right outside of Dayton, Ohio. And they had a 5-week course. Guess what? I paid for that out of my own pocket. And there was a reason for it. And I went undercover. I didn't want the instructors to know that this guy here is a president of a small trucking company down the road. So I wanted at the time, and I tell you when it was 2010, and I was going in as chairman of the board of the TCA. And at the meeting in California, I wanted to make an announcement that guess what? I'm not going to point fingers at the people on this boardroom around here, but I know not all of you got CDLs, but this guy here got one. So I was pretty proud on that. But here's what happened. I went to get my test from the state examiner a week before I went to the convention. and I flunked the test.
Oh no. Oh no.
So that's what I'm saying. I learned from that because I don't take that for granted. But listen, I'm out in Urbana, Ohio, for those that are listening in. Steve, I know you know where Urbana is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it's got to be 18 miles. That's the minimum for the test. And the examiner, and I was uptight, but I like to talk. I like to use my hands. So I'm 16 miles, got 2 miles left. I get on a ramp, I'm downshifting, and I'm just grinding the gears. I couldn't find the gear. And guys, you'll like this because I remember a lot of things from that class. Out of gear, out of control is automatic dismissal.
Right.
And when I got done, there was only 2 miles left, and the auditor said to me, guys, Tim, this is honest to God. He says, just take it in, son. Just take it in. You're done. And I said, I'm done just because I couldn't find a gear and there's 2 miles left. He goes, no. And he got his pad out that he was taking notes. You know, a little stick man. He said, son, you've taken your hand off the steering wheel. I got 18 or 19 stick marks because I was talking about, but guess what? It was around July. And being from Michigan, you know what that means.
Right.
4th of July, knee high by the 4th of July. And as we went on the trip, the corn got taller and I would be going, look at that. Look over here. I've got that scorecard on my desk where I flunked. Well, I went out to California and I told the guys what I was going to do, and I don't have it. When I got back 2 weeks later, I retested and I got CDL. And awesome. You got, Steve, you know this because I told you this. That was 12 years ago, and I've got 1,000 safe miles in 12 years.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. But what I really love about that story, Kevin, and there's thousands of people out there in your position that have that drive and that determination. I want to get that CDL. I want to see what these drivers go through. And I highly respect that. I really do. And I think that's awesome. And well, that's good of you to tell that you flunked it the first time, because not a lot of people would tell that part of it.
Yeah, I kind of hated that. But, you know, our class had 8, Steve and Tim, our class, there was 8, 7 other drivers, and they were all males. And they were all smokers. I didn't smoke, but I went out there with them, and at the picnic table on breaks, a lot of them didn't have really lunch or didn't bring lunch. We were out to track at the school, and so every once in a while I'd bring an extra lunch or whatever. But anyways, after 3 weeks, I got found because they were just back then. Now this is back in 2010. One of the things in the class they were teaching these prospective drivers, you need to go on the internet and do some research. Just don't go out there and get a job with any trucking company. You know what I'm saying? So they were starting back then, getting the idea. And lo and behold, somebody saw a picture of me with Jet Express, which is now MTS.
Right.
And a couple of them, guess what? A couple of them caught an attitude because they thought that I was. And when I ended up getting, you know, the 5 weeks and everything, they knew I was true. I wanted to get my CDL.
Right.
But a couple of them got a little bit offended, but they got over it.
Right. So let's segue into to Jet Express, and tell us about Jet Express, and tell us a little bit about the transition from Jet Express to MTS.
Well, I tell you what, Jet Express was. It started in 1983 by Roger Atkinson. I came down in 1988 and became president in 1990. We were an automotive hauler. We were 100% automotive, truckload, Jet Express, and 100% with one of the big 3. So over the years, trucking goes in these valleys, and I told my partners a few years back in 2015, 2016, I said, guys, we're going to have to do what everybody else does. We're either going to have to look for somebody to buy us, or we're going to have to invest in technology, trucks, trailers, and we need to go to the next level. At the time, we were operating a couple of 100 trucks, owner-operators in the company. And I'll kind of wrap it up by saying that I got to know our competitors over the years, I've always called them friendly competitors, because you know why? We all buy the same type of equipment, really. I mean, the trailers, the specs, the tractors, the computer systems. But what makes a difference is the management and the drivers and the culture that you have with your company. So I'm going to leave that right there.
Right.
The person that was one of the owners of Martin Transportation, I dealt with for many years across the table with the automotive folks, and we were friendly competitors. And it started in 2017 and early in the year, and we had several meetings, and it looked like it was going to be a win-win. MTS is one of the best truckload carriers for also, guess what, automotive. But not only did they have the same customer in the book of business that we had, Tim, they also had a couple of the other big carriers or companies that were car manufacturers. So a lot of times over the years, I've found out that some people say, hey, I want to get into flatbed. I want to get into reefer. But I tell you what, it's tough to start from scratch in a new industry, if you will. Mm-hmm. This was truckload and truckload. This was automotive and automotive. And plus, I knew the folks at MTS. And it was one of the best things. It was a win-win-win. My partners, I tell you what, this is a true story. We were looking at probably investing close to $1 million on technology because shippers were demanding it, and that's what squeezed a lot of carriers. So the timing was right, because Martin had always been steadfast on safety and technology. So they had cameras in the trucks way before a lot of other carriers did. So that's how that happened. My partners all wanted to leave, and I had an agreement to stay on for a few years, and they've allowed me to keep going. I do their government affairs and sales work, but I've got big ears. I've got a big nose. I still have my same desk, my same credenza that I thought I was going to lose. I'm right next door to operations, but I really don't have that much to do with ops now. But I'm trying to tell our story and promote people and do the best I can. It's like the Cincinnati guy down there in baseball. I'm third base headed home, so we'll see where it takes. But I enjoy what I do every day. There hasn't been even flunking a road test or losing. I tell you what, I've lost bids to MTS over the years, and I got over it, but tried to figure out what we could have done better. But a lot of people try to make our industry difficult. Like I said, it's hard work, but sometimes people microscope this thing and, they make it too complicated. If you're a safe driver, probably shouldn't have to worry about cameras and whatnot. Right. But if you're a safe driver, that's your career. You've got a job for a long, long time. And if you work for a company with if you're completely upset, don't like the culture, don't like the people, you're doing yourself an injustice by, you need to take your skills and go down the road, because there's opportunity there. And trucking companies that have got bad culture generally have a pretty high turnover.
Right. Go ahead, Steve.
From your perspective, where do you see trucking going down the road?
Well, I tell you what, we've got cleaner trucks right now that on the emission side, you can tell I've been through the chairs and been in Washington, D.C., but, there's statistics that show, I'm going back to 1988, guys. 1988 was when I came down to Dayton, Ohio. Well, guess what? That one truck on the emissions from a truck in 1988, today, it equals 60 trucks on the road. So 60 trucks on the road, all their emissions, put them all together, equals what that one truck did back in 88. So don't say the EPA and it's a waste of time and effort. We have cleaned the air up, and we're proving it as we go.
Right.
Just like, to answer your question, Steve, just like the autonomous truck, it's too bad the media did a bad story, if you recall, years ago. It was out in Nevada, I believe, and they had a driver sitting in the bunk reading a newspaper while the truck was going down the road. Well, you know what? That wasn't right. And nobody wants an 80,000-pound truck with a driver reading paper back there in the bunk.
Right.
But what happened was, it's a straightaway. It was hauling, I believe it was beer at the time. And it was, 18 miles of straight driving and no traffic and no exits, no nothing. But they should have never done that. So
Right.
technology, we're going to get there, but we're a ways away, just like the EV and whatnot. It's going to be well. So driver assist, you're going to need a driver.
Right.
And I think the word that, and people agree, is driver assist. I get that asked quite a bit, Steve, well, if it's going to be autonomous and this and that, why would they do that as a career? Listen, we're going to need people behind the wheel. They're going to be doing different duties possibly, but you're going to be having somebody in there.
Right.
So, Kevin, tell me, as your time as past chairman of the ATA, tell me some of the greatest highlights of that time.
Oh wow! Well, that's an easy one.
I know.
To be bipartisan, if you will. You didn't want to talk politics, and I'm not going to bring it up, but
Right.
I've been blessed to meet both presidents. Shook hands, gave him a I Heart Trucks button, but President Trump had 2 meetings. We were able to tell our story. As you well know, we had America's Road Team there. We had 2 tractor trailers. That was the first time we had trucks on the White House lawn that wasn't in there moving the president in or moving it out. They were showcased. It really gave the opportunity to tell our story. President Biden later on, because he pushed the infrastructure bill, we were asked to be on the lawn as well. So when you think about it, some people say, well, that's a waste of time. It might be an owner operator, let's say. So, well, why would they do that? Well, because it's an image thing.
Right.
We've got to tell the politicians how important we are. I just mentioned to you how 60 trucks right now equates to what one was back in '88. So let's tell that story.
Right.
And so that's why. So those 2 would be it. Getting my CDL after flunking and going back, I've got that picture. Shaking hands with the superintendent, if you will, because he says, Kevin, I tell you what, I remember jumping in that truck and more or less shaking you, saying, can't you do that alley back? I mean, how many times have you got to do that
Right.
before you get it right? So, it's like riding a bike. After you get that, you feel good about it. And after you're 1 million miles, I'm sure somebody that's got 1 million, they're proud of that. Then they get 5 million, then you get 10 million. But I think that's what those are 2, because we could tell our story nationwide.
Right.
Right.
And we don't get a chance to do that. We had 20 of the finest road team people there and 20 executives, and twice we were there, and that's pretty cool.
That was a cool thing. I was actually down in Orlando, Florida when that was going on. Had no clue what was going on. I was actually trying to get a hold of Don Logan to ask him a question, but I was down in Orlando giving a speech for a group of mayors for Truckers Against Trafficking. And then I'm looking at the news and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And all that news broke and I'm like, hey, I know those people there, so that was great. I'm so glad that America's Road Team got to be a part of that. And you're absolutely right. That highlighted how, important trucking was. And I'm so glad that President Trump, some things that remarks that he made there were right on point that day about, the truck drivers. And yeah, absolutely. And anyway, I did have another question, but I'm going to let Steve jump in there because I think, Steve, you got something else too, right?
Are you reading my mind or something? Or are you putting something in there? But
Steve,
no,
Steve, nobody can read your mind. You got so much in that mind there. That'd take all night.
It's just a big head full of air. That's pretty much what it is. But no, that was actually the question you just asked him. I was thinking about that, and it goes along with what inspired you to jump out here and get on these committees and get involved. But you've already explained that. I mean, you want to see this future grow. And that's why I followed it up with that question. Where do you see this industry going? And I totally agree with what you're saying. It's going to be years down the road before they get the EVs, before they get the autonomous vehicles. But even if they've got all that, they're going to need us. You know, I really don't see that truck getting off the highway and getting into a dock without help. You know, and that's why they're going to need us. But you know, so
Well, there's a lot of hot topics. One of them came up today. Matter of fact, you know, we're one of the few industries where, you know, no means no. And when that comes to that, it means drugs and alcohol. And we got, you know, that's another thing that we need to tell that story as well, because a lot of people don't know about random testing. We've got drivers, we all know the stories. We've got some older drivers over the years, might have been called 2 or 3 times in a row, and they're saying, why are you picking on me? But that's our industry, and no means no right now. And unfortunately, not that I'm a numbers guy, but there's like 37 states that got medical marijuana, if you will, or different things. I've had drivers over the years go out west and call me because they're out there on a anniversary getaway or whatnot. Kevin, can I, you know, can I smoke maybe out here? Well, you can do what you want. You're not driving, you know, but you're risking your job. You're risking
right.
So, you know, that doesn't help when we've got people that are in the pool right now that haven't gone back to try to get back. We've lost some good drivers, but you know what? That's what makes us. I mean, I'm not getting political here, but I'm just saying no means no, and until they change that, that's what we're up against.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm going to go ahead and give an opportunity for folks to call in if they want to, but we'll continue after I make this announcement. So if you want to call the show, listeners, you can call at 251-616-2151. If you got anything you want to ask Kevin, you know, now would be opportunity. We got about 10 minutes to the top of the hour there. But anyway, Kevin, as the ATA chairman, I do want to ask you, going through that, do you, as far as regulations go, when you were there, and maybe you still have some, you know, insight on this, but did you help push any major legislation when you was the chairman there?
Well, I tell you what, I haven't been asked that in quite some time, but let me say this. I testified, if you will, on the hours of service issue, because there's a few people, and maybe you guys remember, I think it was 4 o'clock. They didn't want trucks on the road between 4 and 8 or something like that. Well, guess what? Companies like ours and MTS and Jet Express and whatnot, we do just in time for truckloads for the automotive industry. We can't just arbitrarily at 4 o'clock, all the trucks stop. That was a big deal. That could have happened because I run into people even today, guys, that will say, and I'm not picking on women, but they don't know our industry maybe as much as maybe some men do. Maybe that'll spark a couple callers coming in, but they'll say, well, why don't you truckers just work at night and stay off the roads during the day? And that's that opportunity, you know, Steve, when we were talking about telling a story, that's when you talk about fuel, gasoline deliveries, medical supplies, groceries, fruits, vegetables. I mean, you just go on and on. So you're not going to get that if you're going to only let us go during the dark hours.
Right.
So that gave an opportunity, but thanks for asking on that. Hours of service was a long time on that. And you know what? We're human beings, and it's tough to tell people, you know, when to sleep and when not to. That hours of service just got to be crazy, in my opinion.
But it's kind of like in the beginning. Remember when you took the 34-hour restart, you had to have 2 consecutive 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. pauses.
That's it.
Now,
that's impossible.
Fortunately, my run left after that time, and that was no problem. But in the industry, like you were saying, especially the automotive industry, just-in-time industry, you know, you got guys leaving at all times of the day and night to make that delivery. And I remember back when I used to run paper logs and run by, you know, coast to coast, a lot of times I'd get up and leave it at 12:01 on Sunday morning, because that got me into the next day. That got me that hours. I picked up those hours at midnight. I was able to truck on. You can't, I don't know. You just can't do that. You can't, it's like shut the trucks down in the evening. It's like, what are you talking about?
Well, that was big. And Tim, the other thing to answer that question is the younger driver pilot program. Now,
Right.
we didn't get what we were supposed to, but let me just say, 10 years ago, I was telling people on Capitol Hill and also here in the state of Ohio, in Columbus, why can a driver go from Dayton to Toledo? There's only one way to go, and that's I-75. It's 165 miles. How can we have an 18, 19, 20-year-old that learned how on a farm or whatnot how to drive a truck, but he can't go to Richmond, Indiana, which was 30 miles, and he can't go down to Kentucky, which is 58 miles. But he can go all the way up to most heavily traveled interstate, 75, and go up there 165 miles, turn around, come back, and be 18, 19 years old. So we're getting there, but we're not quite.
Right, right, and that was going to be one of my other questions is about the the 18-year-old drivers versus interstate and interstate there, and I was actually going to ask you how's that going, because I'm an advocate for it, because I'm a boy who grew up on the farm. I always drove heavy equipment. My story is I've always had a steering wheel in my hand my whole life, and I am definitely an advocate for it if properly trained, but that's what I was going to ask earlier.
Well, we're not there, like I said, with the pilot programs running. It's a 3-year deal. Once in a while, just like anything else, sometimes when you wait too long, then there's not a problem. There's going to be a driver shortage problem, and so let's just do the pilot program. Let's do the studies. The government kind of got involved in a little bit where they were putting a little bit more restrictions and mandates, if you will, on who could, what kind of equipment and whatnot. But you know what? Let's get over it. We got some amendments to it, and then let's go for it. Because, like I said, I'm a Wolverine down here, but I'm the Buckeye land's got a lot of cornfields around here, Dayton. And there's a lot of younger men and women that learn how to drive from their grandfathers or their dads. Right. And I say women too, because if you want to talk about women in trucking, if we had more time, but you know what? I hate to say it, guys, and this might get a call or two, but women drivers, the data that ATRI has is that they're better drivers.
I've heard that. I've absolutely heard that. Yep.
Exactly. I do have a question on that. I heard something the other day, and you're talking about the driver shortage, and I totally agree with that. But right now we're in that roller coaster of a ride with the freight and the way things are going in the industry and everything. But I did hear the other day that right now, as the industry goes, there's one load for every 7 drivers. Can you touch on that? Do you know anything about that or anything?
I would probably question those statistics on there, but I will say that we've got a lot of drivers we're an aging workforce. We've been an aging workforce. We're 7 or 8 years older than the average American worker. And now, so we got this slow period of time, and there's people that are getting out. The other thing is the older drivers are getting tired of all the rules and regulations, and it's getting a little bit tighter, so they retire. So I don't know what that is. I'm not gonna agree or disagree, but I think that might be on the heavy side, if you will, Steve. But we just can't let off on this thing. We need to because the drivers are needed, and we still have hours of service. We've got rules and regs, and the economy is starting to turn around, and we're going to need drivers.
Hey, we had a call that come in, and let me see if let me take this call right here.
Please leave your message for.
Well, it's trying to come in on the other phone there, so. But go ahead and talk, and I'll try to get this call up. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like back in the days when I used to run load board to load board. It's the same scenario. You're sitting in Gary, Indiana, and there's 50 drivers sitting there, and they've only got 20 loads. I mean, but then if you go out and go to bed for 8 hours and you get up the next morning, there might be 60 loads and only 20 drivers sitting there. So, I mean, it's a roller coaster.
Hello?
I mean,
Hey, let's go ahead and take this call, Steve. Sorry. Hey, who do we have on the phone here? Is this Gina?
This is Gina Jones.
Oh, Gina.
A female trucker.
You got it.
I have
Gina.
called in since you talked about a female trucker.
Absolutely.
Kevin, I have been enjoying the show. listening to your history, which is amazing, and that I never knew. And I wish when we see each other that we got to talk about it more often. So I'm just like amazed how many years you have in the trucking industry, which I shouldn't have doubted that. But it's been amazing to hear you speak on Tim Taylor's and Steve's show, and I had to call in because you're one of my favorites, with Elizabeth Barna, and I know she's on because we've been texting back and forth.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Hi, EB.
But I just want to say, when you love your job in the trucking industry, it goes a long way, and it shows that we have pride with what we do.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, and you're an example of what we were talking about. And pride's a great word. Passion is another great word. Safety conscious is another great word. Truckers. If you ask them to do something, I don't think I've had too many truckers over the years that just came out and said no, because we find a way to get it done, or we'll find somebody else to help out. But thank God there's more women, better the drivers who are getting on board now and getting involved. Man, I think it's great with Ellen Boyer and the rest of the group that are out there doing their thing, and it's just really good. You mentioned Elizabeth, her knowledge in the trucking and whatnot with the road team over the years, just invaluable.
Absolutely. Would Gina?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gina. Go ahead.
No, and just being a part of America's Road Team is so important to me, because I love to share what we do daily out on the road to the public, to the young children, the new generation, and more females coming on board in the trucking industry. So, but I want to thank you all. I love your show. And Kevin, I was so excited to see that you were going to be on, and I couldn't miss it.
Oh my God.
Thank you all for what you all do, and happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. God bless you. Safe travels.
Yep. And
you too. Thank you.
Tell Steve we said hello.
Go ahead.
Tell Steve we said hello.
I definitely will. I will. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Have
for
a
the
good
support.
evening, gentlemen.
See you, my friend. Bye-bye. All right, that was a good call. And unfortunately, we are at the top of the hour, Kevin. I told you the hour would go by fast.
Well, it did, didn't it? Huh?
It did. It did. It's 9:02 now. So thank you again for coming on, and thank you for the insight. And if there any last words of inspiration, or any last words of anything you want to pass on to our listening audience? We have people that listen live now, but we also have people that listen on the replay.
Right. Well, I'm going to go back to what we talked about with the image. The image and the culture go together. You can't put a price tag on it. You can't really write a book on it, because every company is a little bit different. Tim, I guess what I'll say is that, there's over 600,000 trucking companies registered with the DOT, and every one of them operates a little different. And in saying that, we need to tell our story and tell it every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
I'm honored to be asked to be here, and if somebody calls in sick, or if you need somebody, you got my phone number now, so give me a call.
We know somebody's got a CDL now, and so do you have all your endorsements? That's another question I need to ask.
Well, I did get all the endorsements, but I'm going to tell you, I'll be honest with you, for the last few years and whatnot, I let that go, and unfortunately I had some health issues in there, but I got over all of that. But I did, the doubles, and because I wanted, that's what they were telling the drivers to do. Don't just because you need to know it. Don't go to a school that's got an automatic. You need to learn how to shift.
Exactly.
Hazmat. If you want to get a job at FedEx or some of the other big, you need to have hazmat.
That's right.
And if you're going to go work for ABF, you're going to need to pull doubles, or with Federal Express.
Right. Absolutely. Steve, any last words for Kevin here?
Kevin, appreciate it. We'll definitely have you back on. I know we got more to talk about. Like we said, this show could go on 3 or 4 hours. But we've got that mandatory 10-hour break we got to get before we take off in the morning. But thanks again. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your insight.
Yes.
Appreciate you answering the questions.
Yeah.
You know, as far as our supporters out there that's listening to us live, watching us live, listening to us on the replay, playing it through the weekend, God bless y'all. We appreciate it. And y'all got any suggestions you want on the show, give us a call. Give us a call. We'll work it out. And just want to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers, and happy Father's/Mother's Day. There's a lot of mothers out there or fathers too. So anyway, like I always say, just remember, most important trip, safe trip home. And
God bless you guys.
Check in tires.
Yep. And hang on, panel, until we go off the air. I'm going to holler at you on the other side of this. But I do want to tell our listening audience, that, as we always do, today's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday. There's going to be more people traveling tomorrow because, you know, it's the weekend. People's on vacation. So it's our job to make sure that we look out for those who aren't looking out for themselves. We'll see you right here on Truckers Voices next week. And y'all stay safe out there. Happy Father's Day.
Goodbye now.